Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather tonight to conduct our town's business. We pray for your guidance and direction. We pray that the decisions we make are according to your will, and that you will bless our town and our citizens and guide and direct us in all that we do. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You good to go on the stream? Okay. General fund revenues, operating and capital.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
May I have a couple minutes, please?
Sure.
I'd like to recap last week's meetings, which were a day and a half, and there's been some misinformation floating around. So just like to give a quick recap, if I may. I'll try to do it in 5 minutes. We opened the meeting last Monday, the mayor did, with announcing priorities. And the priorities from the strategic plan were worked over a little bit by COG. They were based on the priorities that came from citizens and from council members. Just a little bit different, but in fact, the number one that he mentioned was recruiting staff. But the reason that was number one was the council recognized that the number one priority for the council was to hire the best town manager. So that is underway, and I thought people may wonder about that. We're looking at about 50 applications, so that's moving along. Then the number two item of the council's priorities was the public safety building, and COG rolled that into infrastructure, but that was pretty much everybody's number one, number two priority. So that's moving along. We'll have that on the next agenda. Number three was town recruiting, providing a good atmosphere for town employees. That was the council's high priorities. Number four was providing a permanent pool structure, and this council dealt with that. And then number five of the council priorities was to continue the 2023 paving plan. Now, in the meantime, there's been some misinformation and some bad information out there. Twice in two different media, we've read that the tax rate and budget guidelines were majority decisions by the council. That's not correct. They were unanimous decisions by the council. 5 council members set those guidelines. Further, there is no election this year. Nobody on this council is campaigning. One of the news media, everything they report about Valdese, they talk about last year's campaign. That's over. This council is working together in concert. We don't all agree on every point, but a council that always agrees on every point is not necessarily a good council, but this council is unanimous. The staff brought to the council a deficit of $564,000. That's what we're going to hear more about tonight, and we're going to deal with that, I guess. The citizens need to know. We council members heard those numbers the same time citizens did, last Monday night. There was no advanced wording on that. In fact, half of that, well, then we learned about the staff recommendations of things we could cut if we didn't want a $564,000 deficit. We heard those for the first time. And that deficit, over one half of that $564,000, came because the staff implemented, wrote into the budget a 5% raise for themselves. And I would ask people, citizens who are here, how many of you got a 5% raise this year? Or if you did you get it just by going to your boss and saying, give me a 5% raise? People who are watching tonight, if you're on disability, did your disability go up 5%? If you're on Social Security, did that go up 5%? If you're on a fixed pension, did that go up 5%? First time we heard about that was last week's budget. There's no question, a lot of our employees are not well paid and deserve to be paid more. And that can be addressed, but on the other hand, we did not hear one thing last Monday or Tuesday. We didn't hear one suggestion from our department heads about how they could do things better in the next fiscal year, how they could do more for less. We missed that. And I think the citizens need to know this council is not heartless. We know that there are needy citizens in our town who depend on Greenway transportation to get to their doctor's appointments and get to the grocery store. We wouldn't even consider cutting that out and not letting them have that opportunity just to cut a few $1,000s. This council is not duplicitous. This council did not unanimously set a tax rate, a lower tax rate, just to have it replaced by a vehicle rate that was going to lay another $120,000 on Valdese citizens. That didn't come from this council. We don't know why it was suggested to us. And finally, I hate to put it this way, but this council is not stupid. We inherited a problem with the pool budget bubble that would not be inflated anymore. We saw 2 managers, 2 department heads, 10 years of councils to watch that bubble decay, and then we were expected to fix it, and we did. We gave the go-ahead to the Parks and Recreation Committee and to the staff to get this thing fixed, and it will be fixed. But then to turn around and have the staff suggest that, why don't we close the pool? Somebody think we're stupid? We're gonna spend $500,000 or $750,000 to provide year-round swimming? And the staff says, if you wanna cut the deficit, shut down the pool. That's insulting, I'm sorry. But finally, we saw a utility budget presented. It was a 10-year plan, well thought out. That's been going on for about 8 or 9 years. That is what long-range planning is about. And hopefully, in the process of hiring a new town manager, we'll also hire the capability that we can have the staff developing a 10-year plan and have councils year after year review those plans and do some planning ahead. So, just want to point out, the utility budget we saw last year was a good one. There's a couple things in it that could be improved on, but the town budget, it needs a lot of work, and I guess that's what we're going to get into tonight. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, citizens.
In relation to your comments and to give citizens an idea of how things have worked for the last 40 years when it comes to the budget, staff puts together a budget with their recommendations, whatever those may be that they feel like they need to accomplish their mission as far as their jobs concerning their department. If the things that are asked for exceeds the amount of income from our tax revenue and other revenues, then things have to be cut just like we do at home. It's council's job. They are elected. You folks elect us to shape and frame that budget, to make those cuts. It's our job. If we wanted to cut, and this is not no idea, this is just me making a point. If we wanted to cut the fire department totally out, that's our decision. If we wanted to add the fire department in, if we want to add anything to the budget, that's council's decision. Staff's job is to make those recommendations. We may not agree to them. A good example, and I gave this earlier, is when I was still a department head, we recommended that council cut recycling out. And we had to run for our lives because citizens didn't want to give that up. That was a recommendation from staff, and council chose not to do that. And it's just an example. So I'm getting tired of talking. Mr. Steen, your turn, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. You know, some months ago, y'all told us what the tax rate was going to be. You told us not to cut essential services, and we tried to do that. The budget was brought to you, has everything in it. We did provide a list of things that we weren't sure if they were considered essential or not, and have asked for guidance from the council as to keep it or take it out. You know, we couldn't do but so much with a 41.5-cent tax rate, and we are awaiting any guidelines or suggestions that you can get a consensus on as to any changes you'd like to make in the budget. Again, anything that Bo gave us lately was an example for a discussion to start the discussion. It was not for him to tell you what to do or not do. But again, if y'all have some guidance for us, we're here to take it.
I wonder if Mr. Steen could explain to us the process that went through. Did you have weekly meetings with your department heads? Did you get them together, and did you sit down with them department by department and go through their budgets and work this through, or did you just sit back and wait till they gave you numbers and then you presented those to the council?
Bo and I met with each individual department head. We looked at where they were and their expenditures at that point in time and tried to figure out what it would probably be needed for the next budget year for them to be able to do their function as it is.
So you just added on to last year's?
No, sir. If you look closely, you'll notice where we did subtract. There's out on the side of the page in red where I had asked for cuts. But no, it's an annual thing. You go through it, you try to understand what's going on, what they anticipate increases to be, such as fuel, utilities, insurance. These are things that they're real.
Anybody else? Okay. Recommendations, council.
I have a recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I know, the planning department had made a request for the land use plan. It was $100,000. I don't think it's gonna be a problem delaying that. I know it's been delayed already a couple of years, but that's one area that we could look at. We could eliminate an expense for this year's budget. That would be $100,000.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'll make one recommendation.
Yes, sir.
I've got a whole list here, but I think we could auction excess equipment that's not being used, and raise as much as $200,000.
Do we have a list, and forgive me because I don't know, do we have a list of excess equipment?
Of course not. But we have the council has appointed an efficiency task force, and that's exactly the kind of thing that this task force should do. So one of the things that could be done is this efficiency task force could sit down with the staff, which is kind of what the scope was of that task, appointing that task force, and let's look at all this equipment. Let's see what's not being used.
Okay.
Mr. Harvey, now that's equipment at Public Works, is that correct?
Pardon?
Equipment at Public Works?
access equipment anywhere, but mostly public work, most of it's in public works.
Anyone else?
I would suggest the in-ground lift, a $30,000 item, be similarly referred to the efficiency task force.
And I would have a question, just that lift was purchased in 1993. Is that a safety issue, would be my question.
That's what the efficiency task force should consider, I would
That's
think.
the lift. Anyone else, council?
There's a $46,000 Ford F-150 in the streets capital improvement request that I would likewise suggest be referred to the efficiency task force.
Okay, next.
Streets Department has a capital improvement request for $60,000 for a tractor and a mower. That too, I would suggest be referred to the efficiency task force.
And I would like to note that's a 1987 model, and do we have parts for it?
And I would only add, we have more tractors in Valdese with mowers than the town of Morganton does.
Okay, next.
The medic truck, $75,000 capital investment. That certainly seems like something that needs to be replaced, that's important. The one we have was loaned to us by the county, as I understand it. The only question I have about that is the urgency, and is that something that there might be grant funds or ARPA funds available that might defer some of the cost? You know, I'm kind of curious about why did the county lend us a comparable truck a few years
I
back?
can answer that,
Go ahead.
because I'm the one that got it. The county, I served as vice chairman of the Homeland Security Task Force. And we had purchased, the task force, multiple vehicles that were used for emergency response, that were specialized vehicles for like breathing apparatus refilling, hazardous materials response, mass casualty response, and so forth. For whatever reason, the county lacked a space after so many years of owning that particular truck. They lacked a space of storing that truck. So I told them that I would take it, and as long as, one, I could mark it as belonging to the Valdese Fire Department, because we needed a medic truck. We didn't have one. And they gave us that truck to use on loan as it is, as long as we maintained it. And that's where that's at.
That's good. So I don't know, I guess, my only question is there any possibility of grant funding? If the answer is no, I'd say, well, forget that one, but it just seems like, a $75,000 piece of equipment, especially for a public safety application, maybe there's funding for that kind of thing out there.
But are we using this to save people's lives? Will be my question.
Yeah, definitely we are. Yeah, it's being used to respond to all the medical
Medical.
calls.
I'm certainly not suggesting we do this.
I mean,
We can look for it. We can have the fire chief look into that. Okay, next.
I would like to suggest, in looking at our attorney fees, and I love Tim Swanson, he provides first-class service, but for us to triple our attorney fees from $40,000 to $120,000 is ridiculous. This council can control that, and so my suggestion would be cutting at least $40,000 off of the attorney fees. We can control how many meetings we have, we can control how many emails we send him, and we can control how many phone calls we make to our attorney.
Okay. Next.
We've got, and we have some staff suggestions which I didn't fully understand, so maybe get those clarified. There's under the fire department revenue, there's $324,000 that I think has been allocated in the past to the public safety building, and maybe it is in this budget draft, but I got lost on the recommendation with that.
Okay. So the 324,000 is in the fire department budget that gets transferred out to the public safety project. So that's an expenditure line in our general fund budget. So that is part of the overall expenditure, the 8 million, I think, total number. So if you reallocate those funds to paving, it's not going to help the budget number. It's just going to use it for something else. But if you cut some of those, that'll help bring those expenditures down. If you use 4,000 to help balance the budget, and then 200, the remaining 200 towards paving or something like that, you can do a combination like that.
Well, what's in the paving budget right now, the way it sits right now?
So you got 125,000 of PAL bill money, and then 225,000 in the streets department to make 350,000, and that gets transferred out to a paving project.
I'm sorry?
That'll get that 300. You have 350,000 right now being transferred out to a paving project for paving. That's in the budget.
So that's in the budget now, $350,000 for paving.
Yeah.
All right. So if we were to continue the same level of paving in the next fiscal year, we would really need 500,000, right? We need another 150,000.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you use 200 of that fire department money that was being transferred out, that'll give you the 550.
And then you, in connection with that, you mentioned $83,000 of ABC revenue that would be going to the public safety building, but we could allocate that to paving?
Right, it is going to the public safety building right now. We could put that revenue in the general fund to help bring our revenues up. Whether you use it if you use it in paving, that's not really going to help you because you're adding more expense to the budget that way. But you could not put it in public safety fund, put it in general fund and bring your revenues up.
We could also allocate it to repaving.
Yeah, what I would have to do is bring in the 83,000 to general fund and then increase the paving budget 83,000 as well. So your revenue will go up, but your expenditure will also go up. So it's a wash
So
there.
it wouldn't change the deficit,
Right.
but it could get another 83,000 into paving.
Yes, sir.
And that would bring then the paving up to 433.
Yes.
If we did that, which would gets us up a little closer to the 500 it was this year.
Okay.
Okay.
So, Bo, would you want a recommendation or or directive or whatever to look at the 324,000 and 83,000 and redirect it whichever way you feel is best as far as to put it toward paving or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Like I said, you can split it up and use it for two different things, so.
Yeah, however we want, the council wants to allocate that. So, if we do the 83,000 ABC money towards paving, you're at the 433, I think. So, if you want to get to 500, you need another 75,000 or so. So do you borrow that from the 324 and use the rest of that to balance the budget, or, it's just a combination of things you can do.
Okay, so basically, Glenn and council, we can use those two amounts for anything we want to.
Right.
Anything council decides or feels like is necessary, they can use that 324,000 and 83,000. Just keep in mind, next year, we probably need to start reallocating that to the public safety project.
Yeah, if you did that this year for paving, you can drop paving next year back down to 350 and then reallocate those funds back to
Kinda like
public safety.
Borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah,
So we could, in fact, neither one of these numbers would change the deficit. Is that right? If we just allocate them somewhere else, doesn't change the deficit.
correct.
But we could move that 324,000 and the 83,000, which add up to 407,000. We could move all that over to repaving for fiscal 24-25, and actually have another, if we move those all over, that would get us up to almost $700,000 of repaving, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not going to help the deficit at all, but that will give you 700,000 to pay with.
What is our paving, upcoming paving budget for this next fiscal year? How much do we need to complete the projects we've identified? Do you know that?
Well, we have 350 to work with at this time. So whatever roads that need the most amount of attention we can fit into that budget number. So we'll start looking at what roads those are until we know exactly what our paving budget is going to be.
Just to add on to that, Alan Hudson and I had a discussion this morning with the District 13 DOT engineer, and we want to get together with the mayor as soon as we have an idea of what kind of numbers we have, because the mayor and I are the two council members on the paving committee, Alan certainly, and but basically what DOT will do is, if we give them a list of the streets that we want to pave in 24-25, they'll give us an estimate on what it would cost them to do it. And when they do it, it would be the whole thing. They would manage the contract. You see, last year we had a little over $400,000 of repaving, and then we had to pay a management fee of 10% on top of that. So DOT would give us some numbers, and that would give Alan then a baseline of, it would cost, DOT would take over the whole thing, pave these streets for X dollars. Let's see what we would get if we went around and got bids on it. So, and that's a short-term thing. The longer-term thing is, as you pointed out, Councilman Mears, in a meeting or two ago, our current repaving schedule has 23 streets that need repaving. That's $5 million worth just in the estimate of paving. What we might want to do is, let's look at this list of streets for 24-25. If we get some signs of hope there that we could maybe get it done a little cheaper than going out independently contracting it, maybe we ought to look at what would it cost to get all the rest of those 23 streets done. And that might be something that would spread out over 2 or 3 or 4 years, but at least we'd know what the numbers are, and we wouldn't have to be looking at it as a new thing every year. So at any rate, we we may get some help from DOT. We certainly could get help from DOT. It may not be any cheaper, but it may be cheaper. So that's what we need to find out.
So it's possible, so if we identify, it sounds like council really needs to determine what their paving budget, what our paving budget's gonna be. Then if we set a paving budget of $500,000, then we'll know possibly we have some excess that can go into the general fund to reduce this deficit that we're looking at, correct?
Correct.
So if we established a paving budget of, say, $500,000, and then we decided to go ahead and use the 324 and the 83, which is 407, can you give us approximately what the amount would go into the general fund to reduce this deficit?
So do you want to?
I'm not saying that the paving budget should be 500,000. After talking to Alan Hudson, maybe we can
Pretty
determine.
close to 300, I think.
So it'd be,
Well, you're at 350 now, so if you want to get the 500,000, that's another 150. So you take that 150 out of that 407, basically. So that would leave you 257,000 that you can use to balance the budget with if you stuck with a $500,000 paving budget.
okay,
So that's pretty much half of your deficit right there.
that's good. I'd be okay with that if
Yeah.
council established, we need to establish some type of budget for our paving.
And just keep in mind, that's a stopgap for this year, but next year, if we got the public safety building going, we're gonna
Yeah.
need that, do something, but.
Yeah, but we also need to keep in mind, we got no idea what the public safety building is gonna cost us.
Mhm.
And Wednesday, Representative Blackwell is going into the short session in Raleigh with the legislature. He's gonna ask them for some money to help offset the cost of our public safety building. And then he's gonna go back in January to the long session of the legislature and ask for some more money. So we don't know how much money, we don't know what it's gonna cost, we don't know what, grants we might have, so we have no idea at this point. All we know right now is we have about $1.5 million sitting available to use for the public safety building.
Bo, I'd like to ask a question on Parks and Recreation. The $23,000 that we paid for the 10-year comprehensive plan, has all that already been paid for?
No, sir, their contract won't start till July, so that's why we got in the capital plan now, because they're not gonna bill us until after July. Yeah.
On your recommendations that came from the staff, I guess your exhibit 13 on last Monday, there was a suggestion to reduce Friday night events to save $10,000. Maybe you could refresh us on that. As I recall, we've been doing it maybe 6 times a year. This year it's 5 because of some scheduling thing. And next year it's in the budget for 6 again. Is that what?
That's the bluegrass.
Pardon?
That's the bluegrass concerts.
I don't think so.
Yeah, it is, correct, it's the bluegrass concerts
The,
that went from 5 to 6.
the community affairs, community
Yeah.
affairs, well,
Yeah, you're
No,
talking
that's-
about the Friday, Family Friday nights.
that's what I thought we were talking about. That's what I
Yeah.
thought the staff suggested, that we might reduce that by $10,000, so.
Yeah, because I think currently there's 40 in the budget, so if we reduce it by 10, we'd have 30,000 to work with. And Marissa will have to refresh my memory how we came up with that number, if you don't mind.
Actually, that would be reducing the season for next year, for 2025, because right now we're already locked in for 2024 season. So where I would see that 10,000 that would be cut, we would have to do that for the bands that we would book for May on for 2025. So whether we reduce the season, we don't hire as well-known bands, or somehow rework that to save that 10,000.
How many weeks would that eliminate? $10,000 probably. Bands are what, $1,500 each?
I mean, what I would recommend is to try to, instead of starting middle of May like we are this year, I would say start maybe even with the Independence Day celebration for July 1st. So right at the 1st of July. That
How
would be
many
my,
weeks do you run now? How many weeks?
We
do
run,
run?
middle of May through the last week in August, so until till Labor Day, I'm sorry, till Labor Day.
And the cost would be what bands do we get in? I think you and I had this conversation earlier.
So we could rework to save, I mean, basically what I do is I try to maximize what entertainment we hire based on the budgets that's available. So going back to that, instead of doing a kickoff finale with a headlining band, maybe you have a $500 band versus a $3,000 band. So it would just rework what kind of entertainment we could book.
While you're up there, the other thing that was in that exhibit 13, a possibility was to reduce the fireworks. As I recall, last year I think was the first time we had fireworks at the end of the festival.
The Friday night of festival, yes, sir. That was the first time we had them.
So that was $6,500. If we went back to doing fireworks just on Independence Day, we could save $6,500 by not doing it at the end of the Friday night festival.
And that would be for 2024.
Yeah,
So
coming
we
up
would
this-
try to work for
right.
that, yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, of course, because it's in August.
It is under contract, so I would have to talk to them about how to get out of that. So there may be a little bit of an impact there, but yes, we could still make that happen. It has been advertised a little bit, just full disclosure, so.
Council, next.
Well, if we go down the activities, in the order that they were presented Monday night and the order they appear in the budget, the first item is the governing board, and I raised the question, but it's up to the council, but there's $45,000 in there to provide health insurance for council members. There's another 2,800 times 5 plus 4,300, whatever that is, 18,000 maybe, for honorarium for council members. The point that troubles me about this is the council sits here and declares, decides to give our employees the best possible health insurance plan that's available, which I think is exactly the way it should be. But then we as council members treat ourselves to it. That troubles me a little bit. That seems a little bit like a conflict of interest. I would rather see us council members, if we need compensation, get it directly and not by not by getting involved in the staff health insurance plan. But again, I'm just one opinion out of 6. So I think if anything's going to be done. Oh, we did get some information from the insurance company, which didn't mean anything to me because the insurance company said, given the low claims by the council, it wouldn't drop the per person rate any. But this council's only been on the plan for 3 months, so I don't know what kind of data they would base that on. Well, I mean, you got a bunch of old people up here. We could hit it hard before the end of this year.
I'm gonna gavel you.
Except for you.
Not you.
But I mean, we basically take Councilwoman Ward out of it.
I mean, I'm old.
We're doubling the average age of our employees. So I don't know, anyway, that needs to be a consensus thing or some other thing, but I'll give you my opinion.
Can I ask about, I had someone contact me asking about could orthodontics be added to the dental insurance? Do we have any idea what kind of cost that would be?
Yeah, so we did look into that. It would be a minimal cost. I think, I don't have an exact dollar amount here, but it was less than $1 on the rate. So I
Okay.
don't know how that would impact the budget, but it wouldn't be very much. So if that's something that council would like to consider, we can put that in. It won't affect too much, but.
Now, you lay orthodontics coverage on top of these old people up here, that could get expensive, couldn't it?
Yeah,
Does that cover false teeth?
We would,
I don't know.
I don't think orthodontics would. So it's less than $1, it could be added?
Yeah,
Okay,
per person.
per
Per
person?
month, yeah.
And that, they would pay it, or it would be paid for them?
For employees, it would be paid for them, and
Okay.
retirees reimburse the town for their insurance.
Okay,
Is there additional cost to the town for that?
It would be for the employee portion, so you're probably looking at, you know,
Okay.
$12 more a year per employee, something like
okay.
that.
So that is something maybe we could look into?
Well, yeah, we have
Yeah.
looked into it. I just
Okay.
didn't, I don't have it in the budget here. That was
Exactly, okay.
a request that was sent in later, but yeah, that's something we can add to it if we need to.
Okay.
Bo, on the revenue side, is there any optimism coming from you that next year our receipts might be more as far as tax receipts, sales, and then, of course, revenue from property? What is your opinion on that?
Well,
It's gonna be, you think your
Usually
projections
90
are pretty accurate?
yeah, I mean, I think, May and June, this is not a reval year where last year we had that spike in values.
Mhm.
So it should be pretty even keel through May and June. We might have a slight increase.
Now that we have the baseline, we know
Yeah. yeah,
within
until our
plus or
next-
minus a couple percent what it's gonna be.
Right, right.
And I had liked Councilman Harvey's suggestion that if we do sell town property, all of that goes to the public safety. I think, I like that suggestion.
Should I
Okay.
fill in the public on that since it's come up? The town has, let me get my directions right here. We are facing, that's west, okay? On the west side of the town hall, this property the town hall sits on is about 1 3/4 acres. It runs, it's 400 feet east to west between Roderick Street and Fifth Street, and it's 190 feet from Arnold Avenue down to Massillon Avenue. So we're sitting on this town hall sitting on that property. Just last week, this property to the west, the old Valdese headquarters building, was sold. It closed. It was purchased by a tenant who's been in there for a couple of years. It's a business. It's gonna remain as an office building. They don't have many employees, but, it's called, the company is ICE. Has nothing to do with, immigration, but it's some kind of engineering firm.
It's recycling.
I don't know what they are. At any rate, but they're an office. So
I
they're-
toured their facility or their business, they deal in recycling.
Okay, well, whatever, but they're, good people, they've been there for a couple of years. But the lot that's south of that building, same size as this lot the town hall's sitting on, is now available to purchase. And we're waiting on a contract from an architectural firm for the public safety building. But the architect did an initial sketch for us, and that sketch shows that the entire complex of 24,000 square feet that was planned to go out on Pine Bur will fit on that lot with ample parking around it. So that's something that the Facilities Review Committee is going to look at very closely at their meeting next Tuesday. And we hope that we can, as a committee, we hope that we can make a presentation to the council at the May 6th meeting that might give the town the opportunity to purchase that. And when you stop and think about that, that's kind of a neat concept. If we had this entire two-block stretch as a town complex, town hall, public safety building, and then the other site was 15 acres. On this adjoining site, there wouldn't be much ground maintenance around that building. We wouldn't have 15 acres to maintain forever if it were located here instead of up there. So that's in the works. So just it's probably good that the public knows that that's being looked at, and we may hear more about it in May. Hopefully we will.
Okay. Council, do we need to go back to council insurance? I guess that's a no. Okay, next item. I do have a question. You go ahead. I'll go after you.
Well, I just, you know, we've got a drug and homeless task force right now that I think is really gonna do a good job for us in here. And also, we have a police and fire department that, to me, they're better than anybody. They're just good. But as I look at the budget, this is not a cut, by the way, but it is something I think we need to look at. I think we need to look at more training money for police and more training money for fire. I looked at the 23-24 budget. The training budget was $2,500. I don't see any of it being spent. I don't know if it was or was not. Now, back in 22-23, they spent, I don't know, $1,000. I don't know how much it is. But I don't know anything about police training and fire training. But I'm sure our two chiefs know about that. And I would certainly entertain the fact that we provide more training to our officers, police and fire. And I would leave that up to the policeman, the police chief, and the fire chief to come up with some kind of plan that would help them and help us as a community. They protect us to better serve us. So, not a cut, but.
Okay.
Are you adding that training, or is that something that's already in the budget?
Well, I think for the 23-24 budget, it was $2,500. It's recommended in 24-25, it's still $2,500. So there wasn't an increase.
Gotcha.
I can address a little bit of that, and I've not had a chance to talk to Chief Walton yet, but I have talked with the police chief regarding this, and they will need additional funding for training. There's no question about that.
And I would like to recommend that they come up with a plan before the budget is done as to how much training we could have and do for you all. What this town could do to better protect us.
Good idea. I like that.
Thank you, Gary. Council, I have a suggestion. We can sit here all night and nickel and dime this, and I've seen it done that way before. I'm not saying that it can't be done. It can be, because we've done it before. But I'm looking at the total deficit, if you will, in the general fund, and Bo, you correct me if I'm wrong, $5,064 and change.
564,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
deficit.
$1,000, yeah.
Well, I was trying to make everybody feel
Really?
$564,000 and change. Council, my recommendation, or thought, if you will, is the capital budget is $527,000 and change. Is let's look at that, and you can, Bo, please, you can chime in on this with your thoughts, because you're the finance director. But let's look at the capital budget instead of pulling everything nickel and diming. Pick out the big ticket items that we can delay. And department heads, I apologize, I've been in your shoes. I dealt with Jeff Morris for years when he got with that red marker and cut my line item out. but that will simplify things. And the other suggestions that have been heard tonight can definitely be looked at.
And Mr. Hunt, I agree, that's a good step to take, but I have about 4 more items
Okay.
that are more than nickel and dime. I mean, altogether, we're looking at maybe another $80,000, so if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Process that, all right. Real quickly, I'm going down here, activity by activity, under administration, last year, the town got hit with an excess charge on voting. And so this year's budget, the 24-25 budget, has $5,000 extra in there that I think can come out, because we're not gonna get hit with that extra charge in 24-25. That extra charge is because the county did not have an election last year. So Valdese got hit with based on population, a big chunk of it. But this is an even year national election, and there's a countywide election this year. So I think there's no reason to expect the election board to charge us more this year than they would have 2 years ago.
Okay.
So that's $5,000 there. Under planning, we talked about this Monday. We have basically $41,000 in the budget for a part-time planning director. And then we have another $41,000 in there in case he should retire and we get a full-time planning director. Well, we don't know anything about that. So I think that extra $41,000 needs to come out of this budget. If we get a personnel plan that requires more money, then let's look at it at that time, but let's not just throw $41,000 in the budget in case something happens. Under Powell bill, I have one under there, I take that one back because I got educated on that this morning. Recreation fees and rentals, I think both that and community affairs, it looked to me like there's an opportunity to raise maybe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 by hitting those non-residents fees a little bit harder. Valdese does a tremendous job of providing recreation facilities and entertainment for people for miles around, but it's Valdese taxpayers who are picking up the tab for it, and it's the residents in wards 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 who cover the cost. So if we spread that differential out a little more, hit non-residents a little bit harder, I think we can pick up probably, my rough estimates were, basically if you made the difference about 50% higher for non-residents than for residents, for most things, tickets, swimming, whatever, ought to be about $30,000 in there. So I just think that's something that's gonna need a lot of calculations, a lot of work. I'm really impressed with what the Old Colony players do. If you make a contribution, or if you become a member of the Old Colony players, you get a little membership card. I don't think it costs so much, but it's a neat little card. So when you go up to attend any of the Old Colony players productions, you show that card and you get a member rate. Well, I think it would be wonderful to give every resident who lives in wards 1 through 5 a resident card. You know, you could make a pretty neat little thing out of it. You know, Valdese proud or something like that. And so anytime we sell something that's paid for by fees, you show your resident card, you get a discount. So that's just, I mean, there are ways to implement it. I don't think it's there are ways to implement it without a lot of extra cost, but I think it could help spread some of the burden of Valdese taxpayers across some of our neighbors who enjoy what we offer to them.
I would, my question would be, when I go to Comma to see a show, if you go over to Hudson to the hub, there's not an extra charge because you're not a resident of those towns.
I think it's across the board charge, isn't it? I don't care who you are,
Yeah,
you pay it.
yeah, you pay what you pay, but there's not a difference because I'm from Valdese. They don't care. They just want the fee that is charged. There's a certain fee, and everybody pays the same fee.
I think where outside fees come into play is in the rec center, more so than community affairs, rock school. It would be definitely easier and more manageable with rec, I believe, David. Is that a fair statement? Yeah, thank you.
And I believe, David, you're working on that.
Yeah.
To rectify that. Yes.
Okay.
So, but we're talking about going from 35 to 50%, correct, for non-residents?
What percentage are you looking at the difference?
He had been looking at 35 is what was
35.
presented. We're talking about going to 50.
Okay.
Are we pricing our non-residents out of Valdese so they won't come and eat at our restaurants and shop in our facilities and stuff like that? I mean, we've got to look at some will that have economic impact?
I
Would
think
be my
last-
question.
Yeah, I think last year we addressed this, and I would hate to see us increase that yet again. We did try to rectify that last year with the budget.
Was it raised last year?
Mm.
How much?
You want to answer that,
Come on
David?
up, yeah.
I know we talked about it in Recreation Commission meeting,
Sure.
but I'm
Yes,
not
sir.
sure that.
So the way that this was dealt with last year was instead of going up on the total price for out-of-town residents, was that we saw a reduction in price for in-town residents. So that's where we went from 25% to 33%. So the recommendation that was made for this revenue year was to go to 35%. Now, going to 50% would not be out of the realm of what's around. We have a lot of municipalities across the state that do have a larger percentage. You go to the city of Lenore, they go 100%. But again, their in-town rate is low enough that that out-of-town rate doesn't necessarily price them out of the market that they're in.
What is our rate right now, David, a membership?
That's a good question.
Is it 400?
In town right now for a household, maneuver this real quick.
The household would be
Household
mother, dad,
being
3 kids.
up to six individuals in the household.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. I know right where this is. It's perfectly okay. Thank you to Marissa for organizing this.
While he's coming up with that, we read a book, Mayor Watts, How to Kill a Community, and I think maybe that would be good reading for folks too, in looking at the budget. It was called How to Kill a Community. I have a copy. Several of us have copies.
I think I got one, or two copies, maybe I can give folks.
I just received that book last week and I read it. So-
Yeah.
So, as you all can see on the screens now, the in-town city limits for both aquatics and fitness is $440 for the household. That's up to 6 members. If there's more than 6 members in the household, they have to pay for each additional individual. And that's annual for them. $660 is where we were at this year for out of town for a household for both, for annual. Okay.
Yeah, the big place that a fee differential would make a difference.
The what now?
The area that a fee differential could make a big difference is in the utilities. We haven't got to that one yet,
I
but
agree.
Yeah.
that's the one that this town is, particularly with wastewater, we're just recovering a fraction of that from wastewater fees there's a lot of room for fee improvement with utilities. And some of us like to use the example, we've got county residents. At one time, I could have thrown a ball to hit who pay the same water bill I do, but they're a couple $1,000s lighter on property taxes, and that doesn't seem quite right.
And I agree with you on the, some of the stuff with utilities, but we can't use that money to balance the general fund.
No, not the general fund, that's
Yeah.
right.
We can't.
But we could use that, we haven't got to that one yet, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But we could use that to reduce how much we increase the utility fees on residents.
Yes, yes.
So my question, did you just increase the rates for the membership at the rec last year?
Yeah.
They decreased the rate for the citizens of Valdese.
Yeah.
So there'd be a differential between what the citizens pay versus out-of-towners pay.
And
We
you
were-
were going up 2%, right, this year?
Yeah.
Okay,
Going
is
up
this
how
the new
much?
rates, David?
This year?
Those are the current rates, so you would go up a little bit more.
Just 2% on the outside, not the inside.
Yeah, 2%, yes, on the outside, which would make them pay 35%, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's good.
Um,
I think it's good.
What about we talked a little bit about the sanitation recycling at the budget retreat. 1426 is what Republic's charging us. Do we want to pass that along? Right now, we're $2 behind on what we charge residents for that. That should, go ahead.
I don't see a problem with it. I mean, if I had to haul my trash, it would be a lot more than 14
Absolutely.
something a month.
agree.
So a couple dollars, I
Yeah.
don't think is gonna, if we can get the tax rate down, I think no one's gonna blink an eye at $2 extra a month. I mean, is how I see it, so.
Yeah, that adds $40,000, definitely, I agree.
Right.
Yeah, that would add $2 per month to
Yeah.
waste
Yeah.
pickup, is that right?
Yeah, it's
That
$12.30 right now. We go to $14.30, which would match what Republic's charging us. So it would just be it would be a self-supporting
Wash,
operation on
yeah.
the side of Republic.
And Bo, we've been doing that for a number of years. We've been subsidizing, we've been basically losing money. The town has been eating the difference on what we're receiving from the citizens versus what we're paying Republic,
Yeah,
right?
it's been 3 years since we increased that.
So $2
Okay.
per, $2 would close that gap and it would increase it. or-
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much revenue would that increase if we did the $2
It would give us about 40,000.
40,000.
a year?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Now, along with that, do we really need to do recycling every 2 weeks, or would every 4 weeks work?
At my house, I need it every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I live by myself, folks.
There's
I
two of us.
recycle.
Yeah.
I
We-
believe
we
in
have to have it every
recycling.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
We have to have, we're talking recycling, we're not talking
Yeah.
about trash.
No,
Recycling.
but recycling, I recycle.
My
I believe
bin's
in it.
full every 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, mine is too.
Well, I don't wanna get into people's drinking habits.
Sorry, it's the Amazon boxes, I guess.
It's
That
Amazon
was, That
boxes.
was pretty good, huh?
I'm sorry. I hate to drag mine up for every 2 weeks, but I don't sometimes. All right, forget that one. What next, Mayor?
I think
All
that
right.
pretty well covers the general fund unless you've
Well,
got something else.
So I'm going to recap here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and let's see what it adds up to.
All right. So we had a $564,000 deficit. Let's see, if we take out the land use plan of 100,000. Okay, that leaves us 464. And then if we plan on a $500,000 paving budget, so we'll take 150 from that 407 and use the rest of that to balance, is that what we said?
How much is that now, Bud?
He's getting it down.
Hold on a second. Okay, so 257,000 would be used to help go towards that deficit. So you'd still have a $500,000 of paving, but you'd have 257, so that gets you down to 207. And then we take out, let's see, we talked about taking out the.
40,000 for the waste.
Yeah,
That's
so
30.
that'd be a revenue, so we take 40 out, so it'd be
Okay.
167. We take out 41 for the planning, full-time planner position,
Okay, uh-huh,
that gets us down to 126.
okay. Then we've got the,
We take,
reduced season, and, fireworks at 16,500.
yeah, we can do that.
You picked up the 5,000 in elections.
Yep,
Now, the 6,000 for the fireworks, that's just at the festival, correct?
Yeah, not the
Still,
fourth.
still the
Yeah,
fourth?
we still have the fourth.
Yeah, we
Okay.
need the fourth.
so you do the reduced season, the festival fireworks, take out 5,000 from the elections,
Mhm.
which, we may need to add that back next year, but, you're at 105. If you take the attorney fee down
Yeah, to
to,
40.
take it down 40, so we go
Mhm.
down to 80,000,
Mhm.
okay. So now you're at 65,000, so at this point, we can balance the budget with fund balance and call it a day,
Or we can do some capital. We haven't really
or we can take out more
looked at some
capital.
capital at
We haven't looked at
65,000.
capital.
There's
Yeah.
one more item here that I'm sorry, but I missed it first pass. This is gonna be real popular. But of this $564,000 deficit, about 312,000 of it was the 5% raise that the staff gave themselves. If we made that a
Three-
4% increase instead of a 5% increase, that would save $63,000. As far as I can find, the CPI this year went up 3.9%. Or we could give all the non-exempt employees a 5% increase and hold the exempt employees where they are for a year.
I don't think you
I mean,
can
I
do
don't think it's written anywhere that town employees have to get a 5% increase every year. I mean, last year they got a 5% increase, year before that they got a 10% increase.
My only point would be, the CPI might be, 3.9, but real inflation is much higher than that.
Absolutely.
I would advocate for at least 5% for
Can
that.
I advocate for 5% also.
Let me read this. I saw this today on the news, and it's a study that was just done regarding the labor market. And it says that 2024 will be the toughest labor market in our lifetime due to a lack of employees and, believe it or not, a rise in workplace litigation. The other reasons for the lack of workers is population decline, baby boomers retiring, and folks, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, I'm just reading the report. The Generation Z workforce that's coming into the workplace. Also, it mentioned the increase in mental health and drug-related incidents with new hires that aren't qualified for or cannot perform the duties of a job. You may hire them and then you find out that they can't function. So my point is, it's a tough labor market. It has been for years, and it looks like, according to this one report, and it may get worse. I know how difficult it's been for us to fill empty slots or empty positions within the town. That's just, I don't think we need to reduce that from 5%, and I do think it should be across the board.
And also, if we look at our strategic plan, I mean, we set a focus area, employee retention and recruitment. So if we're gonna retain employees, we gotta pay them, and it is a tough labor market. Go out there and try to hire people.
I think the hard part for me is I sat in here and I heard people and and I hate to keep going back to it because I really am trying to leave the election in the past. I would leave you behind in your past, as Pumbaa says, and that'll be in the newspaper, I bet, next week. But my whole thing with it is you had people come in here and say that they were having to take loans to pay their taxes. So I think we all kind of need to take a look. Most people who do not have state jobs, county jobs, city jobs do not receive a raise every year, and most of the people in this town, when you look up the median income in Valdese, it is $38,000 a year. And that's actually more. It's $30,000 for a single person. It was $40,000 for a family of 4. We have got to do something to keep the crunch off of people who are in the lower income bracket. I am a staunch conservative if there ever was one, and I think we really, really need to look at all avenues. I love our employees, I'm thankful for them, but I'm also a big supporter of everybody else in the town who has to carry the weight. So until I don't hear our citizens saying, I had to take a loan to pay my taxes this year, we all need to take a minute and say, what can we cut out of this budget so the elderly are not taking out loans and families are not taking out loans? That is the most disgusting thing I have ever heard in my life, is that people are taking out loans to pay their taxes because they're already struggling, but we're just gonna kick them more and more while they're down. That's people in not just my area of town, that was several wards that we talked to. So I think the council, I think the departments, I think everybody needs to stop for a minute and say, are we really looking at every single person in Valdese and balancing out? Are we doing the greater good for everybody or just a select group? Because that's disgusting. If people in our town are having to do that, I'm sorry, that's my soapbox. That's one thing that I will always be like, if our elderly can't afford to live because of that, we need to pause for a minute. And anything that can be cut needs to be looked at right now. So, because the labor force is getting bad, and it's not just because people aren't working, people can't get jobs right now. I mean, my kids, we talk about it often, like, yeah, go get a job, and they're like, all the older people are taking our jobs at McDonald's and other places. It's the fact of the matter, and those people are making $12 an hour. We're not making, most of the people in this town are not doing $25, $30 an hour. It's fact of the matter, $8 to $12 an hour is what most of the people in this town are making. So I just think we all just need to pause and look and see what real people are dealing with right now,
So I will backtrack a little bit to the COLA. So if you go down to 4%, it's only going to save, I know it says 63, or you mentioned 63, it's 26. So the total number was 134 for that 5%. So I just did some quick math. Of course, percentages compound, but if you divide that by 5, each percent is worth about $26,000.
So say that again. What are you saying?
If you reduce the raise from 5% to 4%, it saves $26,000.
Yeah, cost of living adjustment.
So it's only dropping at $26,000.
Each percentage is worth around $26,000, yeah.
And when you look at the fact that I think you'll understand, when the insurance went up, it was like 3-point-something% that the insurance. So to me, that kind of balanced. Our insurance in the town that I've looked at, it is, what we pay every month is a lot per employee. And if we're already adding 3% to that, I'm thinking that should go right into the cost of living. Most people don't have that. Just think for a minute. I know most of us have had state jobs, and I'm not saying everybody, I know some of us have private sector jobs. I have a private sector job. I am one who will look at people with state jobs or government jobs and say, dang, must be nice to just go bang on somebody's door and say, give me a few extra cents in your tax revenue to get what I need. But the fact of the matter is you want to talk about robbing Peter to pay Paul, you're doing that to the taxpayers all the time, because we can't afford it. We can't go to you and say, hey, we need more money I guarantee if I went to anybody in this room and said, man, I'm struggling this month, I can't make my car payment, nobody's going to help me with that. So we've all got to take a minute and realize there's people with real needs in this town, and it just is, I think it's spit in people's face to say we can't balance a budget because we got to keep paying people more and more. We just need to freeze for a minute because everything's, the economy is crap right now, so.
Yeah, we're
Let
we're
me
at
s-
60.
Just a minute.
Mhm.
Along that same line, if that's the way council feels, then we need to give up our insurance.
I do think we need to look at a better,
No,
do
we need to
look
give
at-
up council's insurance. If that's the way we're looking, and that's the way we feel, I certainly will not sit here and take insurance and our employees not get, not even enough a raise to compensate for inflation.
I think a good question to ask along with that one is, everybody who got elected here came on, you got elected, you had insurance coverage when you got elected. So then we go on to the town's plan. We know what that's costing. That's costing $800 a month, roughly. Right? $800 a month is about what it's costing.
670 something per person.
Yeah.
How much?
670.
$700 a month. Okay. Times 12 months, what's that come out to? $8,500 a year. All right. How much, so when we came on the town policy, how much did it reduce our Medicare or whatever, our state retirement insurance or whatever insurance plan we were under? Was it less than that? I don't think my Medicare runs more than $300 or $400 a month, maybe. So, you know, the question is, to give us insurance coverage, is it costing the town more or than it would if the town just said, okay, if we need insurance coverage, here's what's it cost, we'll reimburse you.
It would definitely be cheaper. I mean, honestly, it's cheaper, and I've brought it up before. I said it in the budget meeting. I would be happy if, you know, if y'all want to say, okay, here's the amount to reimburse my husband's place of business, because it's a lot cheaper for me to take it that, and I didn't know the cost when I came in, or I wouldn't have done that, because I feel guilty to do that, to be honest. I do have to not work a lot of times because I don't have a state job. I can't request off. I don't get days off. I don't get sick pay. I don't get all those things. If I don't work, I don't get to eat. So, I mean, I'm fine saying, looking at cheaper solutions, looking at not cheaper, but better things. Because, I mean, if it'll save, yeah, I want to look at every avenue, because it did break my heart at the last meeting to hear a lady say, I'm sorry to say it again, but she said she took out a loan, and there were other people who let me know we did too, to pay our taxes. So, yeah, if we can look at better avenues, yeah.
And I agree with Charlie. I will give up my insurance to give the employees a 5% raise.
If it comes down to that, absolutely. I don't begrudge council members having some benefits.
Nope.
This year, I can say that my workload on council, my business has suffered because of the number of meetings I have to attend. It's been very stressful this year. The first 2 years were a joy. I can't say it's been a joy since January. But no, I agree that if it comes down to that, of course, we're trying to get to this 41.5 cents tax rate. My concern is, folks, what do we do next year?
I agree, yes.
We're gonna be faced with increases, inflation increases. Is the council gonna cut? What are we gonna cut next year? So I don't see anything magical about a 41.5 cent tax rate. I know there are some members of council that are, you know, that have made a campaign pledge to lower the rate. Wait a second. As council, we did agree to give this directive, but there's nothing magical about 41.5 cents. So we can contort ourselves every which way to try to get to this. Maybe we ought to look at, 42 or 43, as far as the rate. I mean, again, I don't think there's anything magical about 41.5. I'm one member of council. I'm concerned about next year. We set this expectation for our citizens, and what happens next year when we need to raise the rate to 45? We're gonna be in a little bit of a pickle next year. We're setting an expectation for our citizens that might be unrealistic to set a tax rate at 41.5.
There's a whole lot of ways to deal with that, and the capital budget, the capital improvement budget is, one big area to look into. I started a little research today. I only got as far as Morganton. I didn't have time to get to Lenore. Morganton has, the town of Morganton, everybody knows Morganton, right? Not very far away. It's in size, it's how many times the size of Valdese? Morganton has 2 backhoes. We might have 2 or we might have 3. Morganton has 3 mini excavators, same number as us. I was a little surprised at that, but they have 3 also. But here we are, little Valdese, we've got 3 mini excavators. Morganton has 3 farm tractors with mowers. We have 5. There's a lot of fertile ground we can look at there. There's another thing that, if you manage an enterprise that's rather complex with different departments and different revenue sources, one of the things that you hear and you challenge your managers with is, well, if you're going to spend more, if you want to put more in the budget next year, then come up with a way to pay for it. And sometimes it's even justify your salary. Come up with a process improvement plan that will save your salary or some major portion of it, or that will do some project better than it's being done now. And again, one of my big disappointments last Monday was we didn't hear one example. We have found a way to do this for less money next year than we've done it in the past. What we saw was adding on to last year's budget. We saw no indication of zero-based budgeting. I mean, none. Zero-based budgeting is you take, I don't want to pick on any particular department, but you take something, somebody wants to spend thousands of dollars for a piece of equipment. What's the alternative? Zero-based budgeting is, do you really need to do that? If you do, what are the different ways you can do it? Can you hire it out? That's what you need to get into in budget analysis. It doesn't have to be automatically crank it up 5% every year.
Council, in deference to the efficiency committee, because I know we want them to look at some of these items, I would say unless they have recommendations, my recommendation would be to take these cuts, apply them. That leaves us with a deficit of 65,000. If the efficiency committee doesn't have any additional recommendations, let's go with this budget. Let's dip into the general fund. We have a very healthy fund balance. We're not going to miss it because of the amount of money that's in there, into the fund balance. And then if our revenues come in higher next year than what we anticipate, we'll just replace that amount that we take out of the fund balance. But I like what we've come up with so far.
That's good, but I would not rule out the efficiency task force.
I agree.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
the staff is going to need direction to work with the efficiency task force. Open the door and let them in. And I mean, we could make that a council resolution, or the staff could simply say, okay, let's do that. And I think the place that has probably the biggest opportunity, especially when you get into equipment, capital equipment, whether we have surplus equipment or not, is in the Public Works Department. I think if we could get the staff to agree, or if we have to make a resolution, that between now and whenever we have to look at budget numbers again, we have the efficiency task force bore down into these items. That's what those kind of people do. Those people who run small businesses, or large businesses, they do that all the time. Let's give them a chance. I swear. I mean, I'd want to do a little side bet. There's $200,000 worth of equipment sitting out at the Public Works Department that we don't need.
And we are working with the efficiency task force,
I agree.
trying to get them up to speed. There's so much to this budgeting process, so I think it's gonna take them, if they get started now, getting them to understand the budget process next year, I think they'll be a lot better positioned to identify
We're
some
not
of
talking
those.
about understanding the budget process. We're talking about getting into the operation. Look at the equipment up there. Go look at the hour meters. Look at the records we have. I mean, we're talking about businessmen who do this kind of thing. They can go through that in a week. They can come back with recommendations. And I don't know, that's another question, is when are we gonna look at the next phase of the budget? When are we gonna see a draft? Is it gonna be May 6th, or is it gonna be later in May?
As far, well, the draft was the budget retreat. So now we're going to the workshop, working out the kinks in the budget. So the next budget will be presented, would probably be in June, is typically how we do it.
Would be in June?
Yeah, the June meeting.
That's when you lay it out. That's when we have the public hearing on the budget.
Yeah.
All right.
And then
But last year you presented the budget in a lot of detail at the May meeting.
Can you not
We-
take the things that we've asked for
What-
and then put all that together and then give us something?
Yeah, so last year, I'm trying to remember, last year we only had one meeting in June.
Yeah,
So we did the budget a month earlier. So May, we presented the budget.
yeah.
Whereas this year, we have the budget hearing in June, and then at the end of June is when council adopts the budget.
But your budget hearing last year was in June.
It was in the beginning of June,
Yeah.
yeah. So this year, we've got it at the end of June. So we're a month behind is how it's working out.
But there's some point between now and the end of June, surely. I mean, what's this, April 22nd?
Mhm.
We're talking about 2 months to the end of June.
Yeah,
I think we could get the efficiency task force to sit down with you and the Public Works Director and bore into some of these details and come back probably in 2 or 3 weeks with some recommendations.
okay,
If we open the door and let them in,
absolutely.
what's that Clint Eastwood's movie?
So-
Don't let the old man in, but
So I'm just gonna backtrack here a little bit. 65,000 where we're at, that's 1% of our expenditures. So we'll get the efficiency task force too involved. But for purposes tonight, the cuts that we talked about, the revenues, balance of budget was 65,000. I think I was very conservative on our investment income. I think I can squeeze out another 65,000. I hope, if rates stay where they're at. So I think I'll be very comfortable with balancing the budget with that fund balance number. So that's just my thoughts. If that's the direction we want to go, and then we can refine it with the task force.
and last year we ended up with $220,000 more than we
Mhm.
thought we were gonna get, so a little of that would go a long ways this year too.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we're all on the same page with general fund. Good.
You
Mr.
need
Mayor, we
anything?
need a break.
Okay.
Yeah.
1 second, you good?
Yeah.
Right. Okay, we'll recess for 5 minutes. Going through Brian or the department head, I think all you'll need to do is just call them set up a time you wanna be there, and you won't have any problem.
No, I haven't. They've been very cool.
Okay. Sir?
Okay. So if you'll recall on utility fund, we had a balanced budget on that. So the one thing that we had talked about, well, I'll leave it at that for now. Balanced as it is right now, so I don't know if there's comments or questions on that.
One question I have, and I think Councilman Mears also, the rate for outside was gonna be 2.0 increase.
This was based on 1.5, so I'll bring that,
Yeah.
but council did ask for 2.0 modifier, so let me bring that up.
Yeah, my estimate if we went to 2.0 multiplier for outside customers is it was gonna raise residential water rates $500,000. I don't know.
I haven't run those numbers yet. Mine was just based on the 1.5.
Pardon?
I haven't run those numbers yet. Mine was just based on the 1.5.
What is it at 1.5?
It's, hold on.
But I think council's pretty well set on 2.0. Is that a fair statement, folks?
Yeah, was there something with McGill where we were gonna phase it in over 2 years? What was that they asked?
Yeah,
That
so
it's not shock,
We
complete
won't
shock?
go straight to 2.0. It'll be incremental over 2 years.
Okay,
So,
that's fine.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, if we did that for both the residential water and the residential wastewater, then, there's a lot of money there.
Well, our outside rates would only apply to water because we don't serve wastewater on the outside customers. We only have wastewater on inside customers. So what the balanced budget had was the 1.5 modifier for outside and then a 4% increase for inside on the water. And then it was like for sewer on the inside, it was like a $2 increase, I believe. Trying to pull up there.
So we balanced the budget based on 1.5 malt.
Yeah, for the outside. Yeah. And we're considering the triple community water as part of that outside.
And that was the big factor,
Mm-hmm.
for triple community. But the thing is though, we've had built in a 4 or 5% utility fee increase annually for, it's been running about 5% a year, I think, hasn't it?
About there, yeah.
Okay. If we bring these outside rates up, we could keep the budget balanced, but drop the inside rates a little bit. You know, we don't necessarily have to hit residents with 4% increase this year to balance the budget, especially by going to this 2.0 multiplier, ramping up to it for outside customers.
I'm not sure that I understand the 2.0. What exactly is that?
Okay, so if you look on the screen here, on this box here, so you've got currently, we're in that first column, FY24. So currently our inside Valdese customers and our triple customers are pay $38.50 is the minimum. So what the 2.0 multiplier does over a 2-year period, it spreads it out. So for the triple water and the outside residential water, that increases those to where they're basically 2.0 is a double. So it doubles over those 2 years. So that last year, that second year, 4170 would be the inside residential water, but then you double it as a 2.0 multiplier for those, so they would
That's
be
what
double.
the 2.0 is.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So if we only did 1.5, then it'd only be 1.5. So the 38.50 for inside residential water, we had proposed to do a 4% increase. So if we leave that flat, that would stay at 38.50 for water. And then just how you would want to handle the sewer side of it, because our sewer rates are very low as it is already.
I think in council, maybe, if I'm wrong, please correct me. I think one of the concerns we have is our aging infrastructure. We need additional funds to replace, sewer lines, water lines. We're providing these services to contiguous municipalities around us, and we want to give them we want to give them a great product, obviously, but we want to charge a rate that is anticipating the fact that we're providing these services, but we need to update our facilities. And I think we all would agree that in the past, we have not been charging a rate that is going to allow us to efficiently replace some of these lines, upgrade our system. The rate has been really suppressed, kept low artificially, just because, for whatever reason. I think we all agree that we need to increase the rate, but it needs to be, we don't want to run off our customers. So I don't know what your opinion is on that. I just want to make that statement.
Yeah, no, that's correct. And I've had some more detailed discussions with Drexel, for example, does not buy water from us. I guess they get water from Morganton. Morganton's water is a lot cheaper than ours, and that's what I do if I were them. So they don't buy water from us. But we get, from Drexel, we get $227,000 a year just to handle their wastewater. And that's good. But we could charge them more. And quite frankly, they don't have any place else to go. So we kind of have a monopoly on handling the wastewater. Rutherford College, on the other hand, they buy some water from us. If we charge them too much, they could get it cheaper from Hickory. So those are the kind of things we have to look at. So, it's just, but if we go to this 2.0, this is the other thing, this is an important point too. If we go to the 2.0 factor, which for Triple Community, it was really 1.2, I think. Is that right? Triple Community was a 1.2 factor up until.
You mean for the first year you're talking about?
Previous to this
water, previous to this year, yeah.
The triple, no, they're at 0.
0, okay.
Yeah.
So they were at 0. Now, if we take them to 2.0, it'll be over 2 years, so they'll go up in steps. But that would mean, that's a lot of revenue, because there's basically almost as many customers there as there are in Valdese. So we could hold down the increase on Valdese residents as we move that one up, and then next year they're gonna get another jump, because we're only gonna take them halfway to the 2.0 in 24-25. So we've got, they're going up in 2 steps, so that could give our residents a couple breaks. And then we have these little pockets throughout Valdese, this gerrymandering that these Waldensians did years back, where we have little chunks of a few $1 million of real estate here and there, that if you drew a circle around Valdese, you'd think they were in Valdese, but they're not, they're in the county. And we can't mandatorily annex them anymore. It could have 20 years ago. We can't do that anymore. Well, 25 years ago. Can't do that anymore. But we charge them enough for water, they might request to be annexed. And that's not, you look up here where we're going with the water rate, up to $84 a month. That's getting up to pretty close to $1,000 a year. when you get up there, right? $84 times 12 months. That's getting pretty close to $1,000. Pretty soon, they might realize, I mean, if we went to a factor of 3.0 or a factor of 4.0, they might come say, hey, Valdese, annex us. Let us pay property taxes and buy water at residential rates.
Please come in.
That might sound humorous, but that's the way you annex these days.
Our rates need to be competitive. Our rates need to provide for our system to maintain it.
Absolutely.
Because if we don't generate enough revenue to take care of our system, everybody loses. Nobody gets clean water and nobody's toilets get flushed.
Absolutely.
And on that same hand, we don't need to gouge our neighbors. We need to be fair and look at this from a business standpoint, as Mr. Harvey points out, and do it in a fair and equitable way. We don't want to have our neighbors paying for all of our expenses. So,
And I'm not opposed to looking at a multiplier that might be a little higher than 1.5, maybe not to 2.0, maybe 1.7, 1.75, split the difference.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with anything that the mayor said. It's just that some of these residents get all the benefits from Valdese that we taxpayers get, except the tax bill. They don't get.
I agree, yes, sir. And they should pay their fair share. I agree.
So, do we have direction then to go to the 2.0 multiplier over a 2-year period? We
Yes,
wanna-
Let's look at the 2.0 and see where that puts us.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that over 2 year.
Okay. And then for inside water rates, we want to keep it at 4% like we have it, and we want to change that.
I think you've got to balance the budget for utilities now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Move up the outside rates and move down the inside rates. Let's see what it looks like.
What happens
Or at
if
least keep it
we do
flat,
that?
yeah.
Flat.
What
Well-
does that do to our capital plan? And for those of you who don't know this, our capital plan in water and wastewater provides for the necessary upgrades that we need to provide clean water and sewer. Without those, I mean, some of our lines have been in the ground since 100 years ago, 80 years ago. I used to hook hoses to fire hydrants that were put in 1927. The point I'm trying to make is the capital project's not designed to make us money, it's designed to maintain our systems. So we need to keep that in mind. I'm all for charging folks as least as we can,
I agree.
cause I pay the same bills that they pay. But, we do need to keep in mind what that capital plan provides for.
Can we look at the 2.0 multiplier and see what that does to the revenue? And then if we consider it excessive, then we can back off a little bit. But I do believe, we need to have the revenue to keep these systems maintained.
So yeah, for inside you got water and then sewer. So we can look at both of those and see because our sewer rates are so low that we do need to consider bringing those back up to, if you recall, I just brought this one
I looked at
up.
other sewer rates and ours is very low.
The green, on this graph that McGill did for us represents our sewer rates. So you can see when you combine them, we're still on the lower end with water and sewer, but the sewer alone at $8.30 is significantly lower than where it should be.
Under capital improvements, I've got 2 or 3 items.
Well, before we get there,
Okay.
we'll talk about our bulk customers real quick. You mentioned about the bulk, Rexford College, Drexel. How much do we want to address that? Currently, we got 4%, just like we had for inside water rates, 4% on Drexel going up. Rutherford College going at 4%. Do we want to stick with that and see where we land with that one?
What is it for inside? 4% too? So-
Well, inside Valdese customers, I'm talking about, we just took 4% across the board now.
Drexel and RC are separate contracts, right?
Yeah.
All right. And I think they could go up a little more. What you have built in so far is taking them up how much?
In the proposed budget, we proposed 4%. Last year, during the McGill study, I'll bring this up, because this is the rate chart that we have currently. So we're operating in fiscal year '24. If you look, the increases for bulk customers was more than 4% over their CIP. So it was like around 10% is what we were proposing last year for that. So built into the budget, the balanced budget that we have here, we've got 4%, but last year's CIP that was adopted had 10% going into bulk customer increases. So that just gives you an idea where we're at on that.
So you're saying last year, those two towns, we raised their rates 10%?
No, last year I think we only raised 5%, but the forecast for the next couple of years had like 10% built in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this year, right now, in these numbers, we're looking at a 4% increase.
Yeah.
But it could be 5% or it could be 10%.
Right. Wherever council would like, whatever direction you want to go on that.
And we're talking about wastewater.
Well, for that, we're talking about Drexel sewer, Rutherford College water and sewer. Yeah.
I would not be opposed to, making it, there needs to be a differential between, I think, Valdese residents and outside residents. Again, we're providing these services, and we should, I wouldn't be opposed to looking at a little bit higher increase with council. I don't know if you agree with that?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know what the percent would be, 6%?
Well, we're doing the residential side, we're doing the 2.0 multiplier. So we're just talking about bulk customers here.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're like talking 6% for bulk customers?
I'm not opposed to that.
Okay. We can run those numbers and see where we land on that.
Sewer, wastewater. 6%.
Oh, okay. I was just asking if you had anything to add.
Just a reminder on the bulk customers, Paul specifically, and we're comparing those to outside people. All we're doing with bulk customers is selling them water or taking wastewater. We don't maintain their pipes like we do a triple or an outside customer, where we have the obligation of taking care of the infrastructure as well.
And
We have a point of entry or sale on water and wastewater, and then beyond that. So that's why those prices are that, to be competitive, and two, it is just a pass-through. We don't have to go out there and dig up their pipes and fix their pipes, or if there's a leak, or replace their meters. We don't have to do any of that. I think, we're good on that.
Would that be a concern to you if we went more than 4%? Is that, do you have an opinion on that?
And I brought Bo's attention to what we did last year, and I think it's actually 11% was projected for this year. We're gonna, if we go, there's gonna be a point. We get to that number, whether it's water or sewer, they're gonna say, and I know what Mr. Harvey said, that Drexel's stuck. They're not. 2-3 years, they can spend a few $1 million and go the other way. It just takes money. And at some point, you'll hit that dollar amount, and they'll say, it's cheaper for us to go the other way, or open their wastewater plant back up. Drexel has an old wastewater plant. But what's that point? I agree with you, get what you can get, but there's a fine line there. It doesn't cost us that much to treat the water, so, we're getting our money back by that $440, $490, $1,000. That's our obligation, not to make money, is to provide a service that doesn't hurt our system, both on water and sewer. And Hickory would come in and take out a lot of the eastern stuff if we weren't careful. They can now. Was there any questions on water sewer waste?
That's good information, that the fact that we don't have to do any maintenance,
Right,
and we're simply selling the water.
right. Right, selling water or taking wastewater, whichever the
Yeah,
case
well,
may
the
be.
waste, we don't have much competition with waste though, do we?
Well, they can spend money and take it somewhere else or build their own plant. But it'd be a 3-year process, depending on however you want to do that.
Okay. All right, we want to talk about capital?
I'm ready if everybody else is.
Okay.
Are everybody satisfied with utilities?
We're gonna talk about utility
Right.
capital. Yeah.
Okay.
Capital improvements. We have, there are 3 items there that I think need a hard look by the efficiency task force. Starting with current year capital improvements, which expenditures that have not been made yet. There's $85,000 for a dump truck and a sludge trailer. I think we need to have the efficiency task force evaluate that. And then we heard about a $600,000 VACO truck. That's something I think we need to have the efficiency task force take a look at. And then I had a note too from something, and I don't remember what that was, that I thought McGill needed to look. Oh, I know what it was. Forget that for a moment. Those are 2 capital expenditure things. The $85,000 that's in this year's capital improvement budget, the advantage of looking at that now or postponing it is, if we don't take it out, it stays in the reserves. So that leaves $85,000 in the reserves that's not in there now. This VACO truck, $600,000, I think that needs a hard look at
Well,
by
here,
the efficiency task force.
so while we're talking about the VAT truck, here's one idea that we can do, because remember, the VAT truck was $600,000. To balance the budget, we were gonna borrow $356 of that as a loan. Remember, we proposed that. What we could do is get rid of the VAT truck out of the capital. And remember, we were contracting that service out, it was like $7,000 to do 10% of the system or something. We could bump that budget up to, say, 30,000, do like 30% of the system at a time, get more done per year without having to buy a new truck. And that's something that council can consider.
I
Just
like
an
that idea.
Yeah, those lines definitely need maintenance, so yes.
Yeah. So that's something we can do there, and that would wipe out the loan part, but put more money in for that kind of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Councilman Harvey, the dump truck and sledge trailer, I don't see it in the capital improvement.
It's in the 23-24 capital improvement.
Okay,
It has not been purchased yet this
Yeah.
year.
okay, last year.
But if we don't spend the money, I mean, the money's still sitting in reserves. If we don't spend it, it doesn't affect the 24-25 budget, but it leaves $85,000 in there unless the efficiency task force says we really need to do that. I'll tell you what the other $100,000 item was. I just found my note. There's something wrong, and this is the one that I thought McGill needs to dig into. We saw that a proposal here in the 24-25 fiscal year to replace an agitator for $100,000. And then I looked across the whole 10-year capital plan for the utilities, and I see 2 more of those. So altogether, there were going to be 3 of them over the next 10 years. But when we were talking about it, as I understood it, each of these ponds that need to be aerated have 2 of those agitators. So we have 6 agitators. In fact, I raised the question, when the manager gave that report, I said, so to replace all 6 of them, we're looking at 1.8 million. He said, that's right. But, so there's something wrong with the numbers here. If we don't need to, if we have 6 agitators and they're $100,000 a piece, and over the next 10 years, we only need to replace 3 of them, how badly do we need each one of these? And then the other thing, just as an old biology major and science teacher, there's a lot of ways to aerate water. And I'm wondering, I'd really like to I'd like to see McGill get into this whole subject a little bit deeper. Is there what's the technology out there? Is there a way that we can aerate these ponds? I know they're shallow, and I know they're waste, and I know we need to get oxygen in there, but are there alternate ways to aerate those ponds? And how fast do we need to start replacing these $100,000 implements?
Where's my
Mr. Paget can address that with
Okay.
us.
Would it help with the education that we're talking about? You're correct, there's 6 out there, sir. We're only looking to replace 3. We use half the system right now. After we got a number, there were 283, we got 2 quotes, 283 and 258, I believe. So what we're backing up is actually requesting more. I think we'll get into that later. But yes, if you look further out in the CIP, if it hasn't been taken out, there's $8 million to do what you're talking about. Put a better system in there, a more efficient system, but that's about $10 million, I think is the price on that. And that's why when we originally looked at these, this is one of those things, got kicked down the road. These were $80,000 a piece 3 years ago. We got the updated quote and we're like, holy cow. We were gonna short term because we are starting to have failures of these systems. We've remanufactured them. We've had to have gears made because you can't buy them anymore. They're from 1980. This company's out of business. So we thought short term, we'll replace 3. And then further out, as you can see in the CIP, we'll come back and spend the multi-millions to do a more efficient system. We can pull back and just go in with the more efficient, more expensive one, now that we've seen how expensive these is, if that's what you prefer. But this was a stopgap until we could do something more expensive down the road. I mean, it's expensive to treat wastewater and treat water, that's the problem. We've looked at this 6 ways of Sunday. I mean, yes, diffused air is the most efficient. You're looking at $7, $8 million. I can take your diffused air system right down the road I ran for years. That's the going way, but we'd have to modify the basins, you'd have to modify the whole system. And then your electrical costs will go up too. So, but it is more efficient. So in the short, we need just 3. We're not gonna go with 6, and I don't know where that came from. We have 6 in the system, but we're not gonna replace all 6. We're gonna use the 3 and still off the other 3 if we have to.
That's 3 across 10 years.
Well, we've backed up. Did you make the changes in that? You have not? Well, I spoke to Bo, and we need 3 of them all at one time. We need either 1 this year and 2 next year. That's what we need to do.
That's not what's in the capital plan.
It's something we just talked about a couple of days ago.
Yeah, we've approached doing it that way. Okay, I preempted him a little bit. But yes, when we originally did that budget, we were still going off the 80,000 until we got a quote, and honestly, we'll buy it next year. If we buy one next year, we probably won't get it for 2 years. That's where equipment's at nowadays. It's terrible. You're right, there's a lot more efficient way, but it's a lot more expensive.
So 80,000 several years ago for one of these massive agitators, now they're 280,000.
Yes, sir.
That's unbelievable.
And they're not gonna get cheaper. That's the problem.
And it takes 2 years to get one?
We've been seeing close to 2 years on most equipment, heavy equipment nowadays. So in the meantime, we're running on 5, but we're running on 3, but we have 5 that'll operate and 1 we've been scavenging. I think he did say he put a soft start back on it and got it operational. So as you can see, I think in this picture, we have 1 basin that's empty. So we scavenge from those 3 if we need to, and then the other 3 are in the basin on the right that actually are operating.
So how many basins are we running right now?
Currently just 1. We are a 7.5 million gallon day plant. We're only treating approximately 3 million gallons a day. So we're using half the plant.
So
That was one of those energy saving things we did. We cut off, these are energy hogs, we cut those off, and we also rotate the 3 that are in there during peak and off peak. on-peak and off-peak, so we get some credits there from Duke
What-
Energy as well.
Tell me about on-peak and off-peak. When is?
And I don't remember, I don't handle that day-to-day anymore. Wintertime, it's from, I think it's at night 4 to 9 or something, and then the other time of the year, it's from 6 to 2. But during the peak hours, we only run one. And then the off-peak, we run 2 of them, because we don't get charged as much in the off-peak. And we still create enough DO or dissolved oxygen in the system to support the bugs in the system.
I guess I don't understand. We're running one, but we need to upgrade 3 motors?
Yes. There's 3 in each basin.
There's 3 motors in each basin?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so if we run one basin, we're gonna have to buy 3 motors, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yes, sir. Was there a question, Harvey, while I'm up here, Mr. Hunt?
And these are old now, I mean,
They were original, 1980. The company great pieces of equipment, they don't make them like that anymore. I know everybody says that, but honestly, they don't make them like that anymore. These are solid US motors. We actually sent one to Florida a few years back to get replaced. We found a place that had some gears in Florida to replace the big gearbox that you can't really see there. It sits on top of the pad. These things are massive, and getting them on and off takes a large crane to get them off the system. So that's probably a lot of the cost, is the crane coming in and putting them in and out. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so the thing that you gave us on Tuesday said, to upgrade one basin was $300,000.
Correct.
And that was just this one machine, I think.
Correct. We've since learned, that'll only pay for one. Yes, sir.
But the basin has 2 in it.
No, the basin has 3.
Basin has 3 in it.
Correct. There are 2 basins. Each basin has 3 in it.
Okay, so there's 6
Correct.
of those things. All
6,
right.
but we're only looking to replace 3 of them.
You're replacing 3,
Yes,
$300,000.
300,000 each?
yes,
So that's $900,000.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Or I can just scrap it and we can go spend $8 million on, get the more efficient system. But this was a short-term gap that we could live with 10, 15, 20 years, hopefully.
will we ever use 2 basins, you think, or are we operating with one?
You're asking me to rub my crystal ball. We are landlocked. We're not growing. Our sewer's not gonna go up, so unless a big water user comes to town, which doesn't exist anymore, we've got some good ones, but there's no new ones out there. So my prediction is no. We will never get, I will not say never get back to, but no time soon will we get back to using 2 basins.
And the ones that are gonna be replaced, what will we do with those? Is it scrap metal?
Boat anchor.
Basically,
Yeah, we'll sell them for scrap metal,
okay.
is where they'll go. They'll go to the scrap yard.
Yeah.
And they weigh a lot, so we'll get decent money for them.
All right, so I see the wheels turning here. Just to clarify, we have 300,000 in the capital utility budget this year for one of them. So the other 2 will be replaced through the CIP plan over the next couple of years.
So we can only just replace one of them this year,
That's
which is 300,000,
that's what's-
not $1 million.
correct. That's what's built in the budget, 300,000. Now, if council would like to go ahead and get all 3 knocked out, then we can go that route. Because you're taking the Vector truck out, that's 600,000. Because like Greg said, they're not gonna go down in price. They're just gonna go up in price. So do we wanna get them all done now so that they're all the same age, the same, manufacturer? Or just do one now, save the other 2 for later? That's what he was talking about earlier. I just wanna make sure everybody understands.
It would
we
sure
don't
make
have-
maintenance a lot easier if they were all the same.
Yeah. We don't have 900,000 in the budget right now for it, we only have the 300,000. I just wanna make sure everybody's clear on that.
Okay. Councilman Harvey?
We have, I'm still not getting all this. I'm looking at it at the 10-year capital improvement plan that I think you gave us for fiscal year '24. That way, must be the current one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I'm sorry, I don't have it on the computer here.
Yeah, you know what that must be. I'm looking for the one for this year. When I look at, this is the one for 2024, okay? Now, you had in this fiscal year, you were planning, this is in 25, okay, $300,000. That's one agitator. All right. You go across here, there aren't any more.
There should be more out there.
Okay.
As I explained, as I explained, we were still under the impression they were 80,000 apiece. So that would have got us 3, but we've since found out they were not 80,000 apiece, that it would cost more. So no, they are not in there. The 300 should have covered them if they were at 80,000 apiece.
The 300 should have covered.
Yeah.
The 300 that was in the current capital improvement budget.
That should have covered all 3 of them, but back when this was created.
Last year.
Yeah.
So they've gone up from 80,000 last year to 300,000.
Well, we didn't update our price last year. Last time it was updated was 3 years ago, and they were $80,000 installed. Now they're $250 to $280. One I think was $250 something, one was $283 to be exact. I can't control them going up. All right.
So tell us,
But somewhere in there, and look, excuse me, is it not there?
We can take the money from it.
It'd be taken off or something.
And use it towards.
I apologize.
That should make sense. Get it all. Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, we've seen with everything that's been done, everything just keeps going on.
We originally thought this would cover all 3, but it's only 1. So it would have to be added, 2 more have to be added out there somewhere. If we don't do it.
but there is a $9 million project way out to the right that this is managing to push it out further.
as far as these aeration basins go, say that there is a more efficient type of basin,
Yes, yes, sir.
but it would cost how much to convert to those?
About $9 million.
About what?
$9 million.
$9 million to convert to them.
And that's a little inflation for it being so far out, so you may be in closer to 7. And they don't hold me to that number till bids come in, but yeah, you'd probably be closer to 7.
And that's what this number is way out here.
Yes, sir.
years 11 to 15.
Yeah, it was inside the 10-year window, I think even as early as last year, but we decided, hey, let's do this and push that out further, and this will get us another 10 years. We weren't ready. Even though you don't think we do, we prioritize, we looked at that and decided, hey, that $9 million's not a priority right now. We can do this and save that later, and maybe even go, new technology comes out before then. This will get us through. We weigh these options every time, every year. I don't play with this money. It's expensive. Everything out there is expensive.
Okay. Council, any further questions?
So by not doing, if we do the contracting, $30,000 to do what the vac truck would do, we could use that money toward 2 more aerators this year, so we can knock it all out at one time?
We
Is what
could.
you were, okay.
Yeah, that's
That's what I was making
possibility.
sure I heard you, like, I was hearing right.
Yeah,
I think that would be the way to go, is to replace them all 3 at once.
okay.
Water and sewer is something I never wanna mess with.
Right.
I wanna keep it.
And it'd probably be a little cheaper per unit if you did it that way, because you, like Greg said, you gotta have a crane to come and
Yeah,
set
you're gonna
these.
save some money.
So you'll have the crane coming in once instead of
Yeah.
3 times.
Plus, if it takes 2 years to get them,
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll take the vac truck out, we'll add 30,000 for what that truck services that performs, that we currently contract out.
okay.
And then we'll put in for the 3 aeration basins. We'll do a 2.0 multiplier, 6% for bulk, flat for inside customers. And then sewer, we're gonna leave like we proposed. Is that good with everyone?
Council? Does that suit everybody? Yep.
Say that again, the last part of that.
So we talked about leaving the inside water rate the same, but the sewer part, raising that up by like, I think it was like $2 or something. And then once we do that, we'll plug in all those numbers and we can come back to council and say, okay, here's where the budget
Yes.
lands.
Let's see what it looks like.
Okay.
And then we've had some offline discussion, and we'll have some more about headcount that might offer an opportunity to improve expenses.
Okay. You through?
I think so.
Council, any further questions?
Well, I have one, that jetter, the water and sewer construction, is that the one we're gonna pay $30,000 a year to get done?
That was
That's the big truck up on the screen here.
Yeah, that back,
Yeah,
yeah,
that one.
okay. I'll shut up.
Okay. Council, I appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate your work. This hasn't been easy, but I think our citizens can say that we looked at everything, as Heather said. And I certainly appreciate Bo and Brian's work and our department heads. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate you. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're gonna have to work on that. Those in favor signify by saying yes and raising your right hand.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.